Hello, my name is Michael Bartnick from Software Solutions Group. Today we'll be going over SmartList for Dynamics GP. SmartList are a reporting tool that come with Dynamics GP to easily search and query on data from Dynamics. To access the SmartList, you first start by going to Microsoft Dynamics GP and select SmartList. The first thing to point out on the SmartList is the panel on the left-hand side of the screen, which has all of the different series that you have access to in GP. If I click on the plus sign next to one of the series, I'm selecting purchasing. You'll notice I have a handful of SmartLists in here. Each of these folders represent a SmartList. When I select the plus sign next to one of the SmartList, it opens up with a bunch of SmartList favorites. The little icon that looks like a clipboard is a SmartList favorite icon. If I click on the vendor SmartList, it automatically refreshes the content pane for me with all of the columns in the SmartList. It's telling me that there are 103 vendors in the SmartList. That's 103 total records in my SmartList. It completed if it was still searching. It would show me here, and that there was no search criteria and a limit of 1,000 records. If there was information that I wanted to include on my SmartList that's not currently available, I can do that by selecting the Columns button at the top ribbon bar, which opens up my Change Column Display menu. When clicking the Add button, I'll open up another screen, the Columns screen, where I can select from a huge list of fields that are related to the vendor card. For today's example, I'm going to pretend that I need to clean up some vendor card data, that I'm responsible for making sure that there are tax IDs assigned to the vendor cards. So I'm going to add the tax ID number column, and I'll say that I need to only search for a particular vendor class. So I can add multiple vendors at a time, or excuse me, multiple columns at a time if I hold the control button down on my keyboard and with my mouse click the column heading, the field name. So you can see I have multiple columns selected now. If I hit OK, it adds them into my column list. I can move the columns I've added to a different location in the SmartList. So if I select vendor class ID and hit the up and down arrows, I can move it to be below the vendor name. Also, if I wanted to, I can click into the display name and change the column heading. So from vendor class ID to class ID. I click OK, and my SmartList refreshes. You see now I have the class ID available as my third column. If I wanted to sort by the class ID, all I have to do is click the column heading. It automatically sorts. As you can see, I can do an ascending order or descending order. A little triangle goes into the column heading for me to show me that's what I'm sorting by. I'm going to go back to the vendor ID. Now, if I only need to see vendors where the class ID starts with USA, I could easily do a search to filter out my SmartList. To do a search, I click on the search button in the ribbon bar, which opens up my search screen. First thing to point out here is that I'm searching by column name, so any column that's in my SmartList, I can click the lookup and find it in this screen. So I'm selecting class ID, I hit OK. My filter is the next part I want to fill out. So my filter can be, depending on if I'm searching based on some text or a number. If it's a number, I would say it's equal to or greater than or less than, versus my text, which I'm going to say in this case, I want to say it begins with the value USA. I can go on to add additional columns to my search if I need to, but I'm going to skip down to the bottom, and I'll show you that this is something that's important. If you feel like your SmartList is maybe excluding some data, it might be because the maximum record, the default setting for that is 1,000 records. You can change this to allow the SmartList to pull in more than 1,000 records. So I'm just going to expand it by a bunch. And if I hit OK now. It's going to refresh my SmartList again. You can see in the bottom I've got a total of 59 vendors, so it's filtered out everything that doesn't meet my search criteria, and it's telling me here that my search criteria is checking to see if the class ID begins with USA. So if I, at this point, want to save this favorite so I can come back to it and not have to add the columns and add the search criteria, I can come up to the favorites, click this button, and it's kind of like clicking Save As. If I add a name to it, I'll say this is vendor tax ID by class. And I can make this SmartList favorite available to the entire system, just for a particular company that I'm working in, a particular user class, or just for my user ID. So I'm going to make it available to the entire system. When I click Add, it'll ask me to either add it as a favorite or add it as a favorite and create a reminder for it. So for today, I'm going to create this as a favorite and also add a reminder. So when I do that, selecting it as a reminder, it pulls up the custom reminder screen to remind me when, based on some certain selection criteria, or excuse me, based on when the SmartList has a certain value of records, or maybe a total in a column of a certain value. So I'm going to say that if there's more than 10 records in my SmartList, I want it to prompt me with a reminder, and I'm going to display it as a queue on my home page. So I'll say OK to that. And so now if I go back to the SmartList panel over here, within the vendor SmartList, I now have a vendor tax ID by class SmartList, which has my settings saved for me. If I'm working on this, or excuse me, if I'm using this SmartList because I'm using it to clean up data, one nice thing is that if I double click on a row within my SmartList, I can go directly to the vendor maintenance screen. Or alternatively, if I've highlighted a row, I can click the Go To option up in the ribbon bar and go to one of these various screens that are related to the vendor. So I can go to the vendor inquiry screen, or I could go to the vendor transactions inquiry directly from the vendor record that I'm looking at in the SmartList. So now I'm going to go back and take a look at my GP and refresh my home page. And you can see, actually I'm going to close this SmartList. I now have a vendor tax ID reminder on my home page. If I click on this icon, automatically opens up the SmartList and refreshes it for that reminder. If I wanted to export this data out to Excel or Word, all I have to do is come up to the top ribbon bar, click the Excel button. Automatically that data gets fired off into an Excel document. So you can see here I have my Excel document, which looks just like my SmartList, and you can do anything you would normally do in Excel with it, and you can save this file off to your network or to your local drive. So that completes our session on GP SmartList. Thank you for joining us. Again, I am Mike Bartnick from Software Solutions Group.